Welcome to the second episode of Out of the Blue, the podcast. Today's guest is Michael Scott. Michael is a man that's a living, breathing miracle. You're about to hear a story of resilience and recovery like nothing else, as he amazes the doctors with his fearless recovery and breaking every record. His journey is ongoing, but so is his victory. Thank you for joining us because this is a powerful one. I'm Vernon West with my co-host Vernon III, and this is Out of the Blue, the podcast. Hello and welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast. I'm your host, Vernon West, with my co-host Vernon West III, my son, and here today is our primary guest is Michael Scott. We're honored to have him for our guest today. He's going to recount to us some inspiring things. And I'm going to leave it up to you, Michael, to guide us along this journey. First question, I guess, really is, tell us about tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Vernon, I don't know. I'm sure you must know this now, but because I'm in my 50s and you've known me since I was 12 or 13, I think, I don't know if we ever talked about it. You know, I was in the Army Reserve at 17. You know, that first band that I had with your old lovely brother, Paul, right? We started that like at 13. And at some point, you know, we got as far as we got to it, like 13, 14, 15, 16. We all started doing different things. And I think I saw the movie Stripes and I broke up with my girlfriend. And that made me just go, oh, I think, you know, I was born in the military. I don't think you ever knew that. My dad was at Fort Leonard, excuse me, not Fort Leonard Wood. That's where I was, where I did basic training and other stuff. I was born in Fort Lee, Virginia, and had a lot of family, uncles in the Navy, all the stuff, and I just never really knew what I wanted to do. And I went into the into the city hall in Malden where they had all this stuff, and I started talking to people, and anyhow, that's how it all started. But it wasn't active. I joined the Army Reserve because they convinced me, you should do this and see if you like it, then you might go active. I really wanted to go active, but then I learned that the Army recruiters were trying to fill a quota, and that's what they still do. So I got kind of scammed into the wrong thing, but not you know, I was only in that for a few years. And then many, many years later, because of my day job background and how I was working for the government, other things, people I'm working with, I got some other opportunities to rejoin. I could have rejoined during 9/11. My girlfriend at that time, she was prior service and said, don't do it, you get killed. And you know how that stuff happened with some of those people. So in my day job, I had a colonel who was reporting to me in my day job who convinced me to join, to come back. So I've been back for, you know, like 6 years, 5, 6 years, something like that. And anyhow, that's pretty much it.
So then you did, we went to LA, you got into some acting, I remember? You told me that.
Oh, yeah, that was something, right. So getting back to this.
Not to mention bedtime stories.
Yeah, that's right. Who you used to manage for a while.
Right.
That's such a good name, by the way.
Bedtime story. I know. But thank you.
Metal.
I don't even know. Yeah, we were almost more like, you know, Filter meets Nine Inch Nails. That's kind of how it came across in some ways. But, you know, the guys from Filter, Richie Patrick from Filters, he's the singer. He's a friend of mine. He used to be the lead guitar player in Nine Inch Nails. Another story. But I moved here in 1989. Why did I move here, or when did I move here? Or
well, yeah, why is a good question.
Girlfriend from Boston who was from West Virginia who hated Boston. And I got an opportunity to move here, and she said if I didn't do it, she'd break up with me and move back to West Virginia. We moved here, and after 3 months, we broke up anyhow.
So
the acting thing was an accident because I had, you know, everybody in California who, I mean, I would imagine you, Vernon Jr., have come across people who are all out here to be actors and musicians, all that stuff, I would imagine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's mostly that.
I had a bunch of neighbors. I never expected, if you lived in Boston, anywhere you lived before being in California, I would imagine you probably didn't have any neighbors who were pursuing acting or music. Uh, so yeah, all of a sudden I had all these neighbors who were pursuing acting, and I'm like, I never thought about it. When I moved here, I'd only been to California once, and that was it. And it was a very short journey, so I didn't know what people were doing out here. But I had a neighbor. I broke up with my girlfriend. He just got divorced. He was pursuing acting. He said, "You should come join my acting class." So I joined his acting class, and I started getting cast, and he wasn't getting cast. It's just one of those things, I guess, where you guys, the West family, everybody in the West family is the most incredible musician in their blood automatically. I don't know how I got the automatic acting thing because I didn't have anybody in my family who did that, but somehow it wasn't too hard to do. And I got cast a little bit. I got a few things and got to the point finally where I had some good opportunities, and I got another girlfriend who was from Washington State, who I met. She was an extra on this thing I was working on, doing stunts. And then she kind of pulled that same stuff with me. I don't like California. I'm going to break up with you if we don't move to Washington, Seattle. Moved to Seattle with her.
Why are all these girls trying to take you places?
Well, I think they would do it to anybody.
Right.
Nothing like falling in love in Washington.
Yeah, so I was up in Washington. So I got cast on it wasn't exactly a series yet. It was, I'm trying to remember the name. It was called, oh my gosh, I'm having a brain issue. We'll talk about that. So my memory's getting stuck. It was called The Marshall Chronicles, Marshall. Marshall. There used to be a TV movie in the 70s called The Martian Chronicles. Not the same thing. They only did 6 episodes of this thing called The Marshall Chronicles. It was supposed to be New York. And it was almost like that movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Did you guys both ever see that?
Oh yeah, I saw it.
So you know how Ferris, he'd be acting. Let's say I'm on a camera. Right. Let's say let's say you're watching a movie, and Ferris was like, "Oh yeah, blah 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 blah." Then he'd look at the camera and go, "And that's why I said this," and he'd go back and forth. That's the kind of movie. That's the kind of TV show this was, but it was about New Yorkers. And I was hired to play one of these guys wearing a leather jacket. And I'm talking about me and that girl. We came up with this plan, which was if I got cast on that, if the show got picked up, we'd stay in California. I was hired not as a main character, like a guy who would be in every other episode, like with your name at the end of the show, not at the beginning, because you're not one of the stars. And we agreed that if the show got canceled and didn't get picked up, then I would move to Seattle. That's what I did because it didn't get picked up, got on TV. And then we broke up there after 8 months, and Seattle couldn't do my thing, took a regular job, not playing in a band or anything. And then I came back to LA. That was like 90. No, I'm sorry, that was 91.
And that was
So I had an acting career 89 to 90, 91.
And that was the beginning, right before Dead Time Stories.
Way before Dead Time Stories. Dead Time Stories was around 90, I want to say 98, 99.
No,
really? Really? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Vernon Jr., that's one of the Vernon Sr., Vernon Jr. and I were talking about, he brought up the name Lindsey Buckingham.
Lindsey Feldman.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Lindsey Feldman, not Buck. You got to deal with my bad brain here.
That's all right, man.
I didn't mean the guitar player Fleetwood Mac, but yes, I meant Lindsey Feldman.
And Lindsey Feldman, by the way, was the lawyer for Nine Inch Nails.
And he's been the lawyer for, oh gosh, who's that other great Insane Clown Posse?
Insane Clown Posse, yep.
He got them. Vernon Jr. had, just changing the subject. Lindsey Feldman was with Insane Clown Posse almost since day one. And he got them signed to Hollywood Records. And I don't know if you remember this, Vernon West Sr., if you knew this. Hollywood Records is owned by Disney. And Disney couldn't believe that one of their guys at Hollywood Records signed this crazy, swearing, loud band called Insane Clown Posse, who were selling millions and millions. I think they could have made a lot of money. Lindsay Feldman worked with them on getting signed. And Hollywood informed them that Disney wanted to drop them. They had a short little lawsuit over it, like lasted a month. They didn't have to record anything. He got them up. The contract ended. They didn't produce anything, and they got to get like $2 million for signing it, not doing anything. Something like that.
Yeah,
Lindsay told me the whole story.
Lindsay is a gem, right? He really is.
They're also like, they don't just use the word insane. Like their fan base, the Juggalos, are crazy. Like it's like intense festival partying. Like to be the lawyer that makes sure they never get in trouble, considering their fan base is so wild, like he's got to be good.
I remember
Anyway,
Lindsay
it's
told
cool
me
to.
yeah. Lindsay
Yeah.
used to tell me that their biggest source of income was their merch. And they said they
That-
made millions on their merch. You've had an interesting life, though, you know, and the Dead Time Stories, I remember them. You had a little bit of a hit going on. What was the song?
God Talks to Me.
God Talks to Me?
Yeah, and you know, it wasn't
Nice.
like it. So Vernon Jr., that I got lucky. I got to write some cool stuff. I think, you know, I wasn't super believing in him at the time, but it wasn't a bad lyrical song. It wasn't an anti-God song. It was kind of like, it really turned into be a song about what goes through you and the good people and the bad people, and you know, I mean, it wasn't always it didn't always have the best lyrics, but it wasn't an anti-God song. I'll leave it at that. I'll let you hear it sometime if you like. But it was very close to like White Zombie meets Nine Inch Nails, I think.
Ooh,
Really
yeah.
was.
Please send
And
that. I want to hear
Yeah,
it.
what your dad's talking about is this was all happening at this time on the internet, where all these companies were coming out, and like Napster, all these. I don't think it exists anymore. It was right at the beginning. Things with the labels were going to start changing. And you remember, I don't know if you remember this, Vernon, either one of you, Vernons, probably Vernon Sr., where, oh gosh, what was that big sort of metal band from San Francisco?
Metallica?
Metallica.
Yeah.
Metallica
Yeah.
got their songs stolen and put all over the internet before you could sell your song and it get paid for. So people were buying music, putting it on the internet, and albums weren't making any money. So that turned into this whole new thing that became how your songs could get played on the internet. For me, that song, God Talks, I submitted it to mp3.com.
Right,
I don't know if that
MP3,
exists anymore, but
that's
back in those days, MP3 was like a big deal.
Right.
mp3.com took our music, put it on the internet. We got like, it doesn't sound a lot like, it wasn't a lot back then. Now it could mean a lot, but we got like over 1 million hits. And believe it or not, yeah, 1 million hits in the late 90s meant a lot, but today record companies don't seem to care about 1 million. They want, well, yeah, 1 million doesn't mean much if it's the whole United States getting played on a computer, because all those 1 million hits we didn't get paid for. They were all free, just people listening to my music for free.
Well, as I
they-
recall, Lindsay had a label interested, but your guitar player, your co-writer, he got a little crazy and then
Yeah,
decided.
he did. He's everybody. I'm still friends with everybody in that band except him. He lost friendships with lots of people. This is a good friend I had for many, many years. We never had a band uh, together. He's played in a lot of bands, but he has his own issues. And he I actually we recorded at his place. He had his he you know it was all uh I'm trying to remember that recording system. It wasn't
Garage band?
no, it wasn't GarageBand, but nevertheless, there were so many other names. It'll come to me. But the funny thing was that we used to say when people would say, "Oh, how'd you record this?" Chris would always say Pro Tools, like Pro Tools,
Pro Tools. Yeah,
or
that's
not
all.
Pro Tools, Pro Tools. Same kind of thing, a lot cheaper, and you didn't have to have a bunch of changes. But so he was doing a lot of bands on that kind of stuff. He's a good mixer. He's not the best producer. He's okay. He can produce. He's a good guitar player, but I kind of wrote all the songs. I wrote the lyrics. I wrote the music. And when I say I wrote the music, I wrote the bridge. I wrote the chorus. I wrote everything. And because we recorded with him and because he played the guitar, he kept pushing himself forward. And I believe, yeah, I think Vernon Jr., you and I were talking about this the other day about writing songs, who gets the right credit, how they should get credit. If you're not going to get credit, then you shouldn't have to pay for anything. You shouldn't have to put any of the money out if you're doing all this work, but it's not your song. But nevertheless, I said to him, I didn't even know what to do because I never went this far in my life with writing. When I was in Boston, yeah, we wrote songs, and we didn't put them into ASCAP, didn't do nothing like that, or we played covers. So this is the first time in my life I had to go through that. I played in other bands in California where they wrote everything. I played bass. The bands didn't go too far. I never had to pay for. Nobody charged me for the recording, but I learned how to play these songs. In this band, we both got kind of fed up with playing for other bands, and we started doing our own thing. But and I gave him good credit. Like even though I wrote 100%. And there was no cost because it was his equipment that he already owned and he wanted to be involved. We just kind of did I gave him 20%. We didn't think anything would ever happen. So I think 20% of the writing, 20% of the I'm getting stuck again. Sorry.
Of the publishing.
Yeah, but the publishing and the writing, that's not a bad thing. And again, he didn't have to pay anything to do this. But a little side note here, he gets this girlfriend who had this ex-boyfriend who was in so many other bands, and it's a long story, whatever happened to him, we don't need to talk about that. And she started convincing him, oh, you should get more and more. And that was starting, we were doing well, we were moving forward. We were playing out here, getting some big, good shows. We were getting played on one of the stations out here. And great guys in the band, but this guy had some weird issues, even with his mother and his brother. I'm still friends with his mother and brother. He's not talking to them. A lot of people he's worked with, nobody talks to this guy anymore. He moved, has a weird girlfriend so what happened later on, I had him connected with a good friend of mine who's a sort of a famous actor who was doing his own music, and that guy was paying him like 150 an hour. Was a lot of money even in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
He's
that's
getting
good money.
150 an hour. And when he found out that my friend who was making $100,000 a week for his television show, he started complaining, I want more money. He was holding off on recordings that he had that he didn't bring back to my friend. Because he now wanted $500 an hour because the guy made $100,000 a week. That's not how it should work, right? So he blew up a lot of. I know we're not here talking about.
That's interesting to know the background because it really, what I'm thinking is now you're cruising along, you're doing your life. Then what happens when the out of the blue thing from from the day you were diagnosed, tell us about that. Like the day you had a headache. What was it that made you go in the hospital?
2021, around in May. In the beginning of May, I was in Northern California with my job. So not music, not Army, but my federal stuff. I was a project and program manager running some big activities with the government and so forth for Edison and Pacific Gas and Electric, which is up north. All of a sudden, and I have to run those meetings because it's, as a project manager, in some ways, it's kind of like whether you're a producer of a band or producer of a film or something, the project manager has to run the whole thing, is managing the people doing all the work, managing the budgets. And I would have to have meetings. And I had a lot of good friends I was working, who I became guys I had become friends with, who I was working with. So sometimes I, crack jokes, but I was talking in a way in a meeting where they thought I was cracking jokes because the wrong words were coming out. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Just my brain was kicking out not like swears. When I say bad words, like the wrong part of the conversation. And I wound up I have a good doctor. I was able to get on the phone and he talked to me. I was in NorCal. He was in near Santa Monica in UCLA, and I called him on the phone. He didn't understand me. He said, "It sounds like something's wrong. You should get to the emergency room." But I was in Northern California, so I got back on a plane that came back. And all of a sudden, I didn't even know how to use my cell phone. I was just kind of like, I was at Burbank Airport trying to get an Uber. And I was having the hardest time trying to figure out how to turn my phone on and how to get to Uber and I didn't know what was going on. I finally did. I got home. I passed out. I had like a little seizure. I passed out, got myself to the hospital in Pasadena, a hospital called Huntington. I got them to take my phone to take a picture of the MRI for me. And there's the tumor.
Okay. Yep. And
That was the first.
That's on your left side, right?
Yeah.
That's where I got mine.
Oh, left temporal lobe.
Yep. When it was on my motor functions.
After the surgery, you could see all the stitches on the head.
Yep. Got quite a few, more like staples. I got them too.
Of course, military coming to see me. I was in the hospital. I was already back in the military at that time. And little side note: did you know Philip Bino?
I know the name. Yes. Well, how do I know him?
Philip Bino was from Malden. He grew up in Malden Apartments area where I was. Just this photo came because he came to see me. Philip Bino's been playing for Steve Vai for like 25, 30 years.
Really? Good for him.
He's been playing all over the place. There's Philip when he came to see me in the hospital in the middle of the tour. He showed up. But Philip, he's still on. He's another great guy. He's not the reason that I want to. He's a great guy. He's a great bass player, but he's not the Vernon West of my life. That is that great bass player that made me. Going back to the story of some of the stuff you sent me. How I met you and how. Obviously, I still can't remember how I met Paul. I can't remember for the life of me. I don't know why, but we met when we were like 13, 14. And Paul was taking me over to your place. Paul was the one teaching me about all the British music that I didn't know about when I was 14, getting me into the Kinks. I mean, I knew who the Beatles were, but he knew all this Beatles stuff. He knew all the Kinks stuff. He just knew so much. And Paul was teaching me how to play. And at that point, I still didn't know much about you or Dana.
Question: do you remember how you met, like, our family? Like, who was the first one?
First one was Paul, but I can't remember how we met. I just don't. We could have met on a street somewhere. Sorry?
It wasn't like school or like maybe like through music or at a show?
We went to different schools. He went to Revere High. Oh, sorry. In high school, I went to Malden Catholic. He was at Revere High, I think, but before that, because we were 13, 14, I was going to school in Malden. He was going to school in Revere. It wasn't far apart. I don't know why. I can't remember how I met him, but how I met your dad and your uncle. is when Paul invited me back to the place you guys were living with your mom and everybody was living at. And I didn't know anything about SAS till I walked in the door, because how would I at 13, 14? You might know more about SAS, listening to the radio, but again, 13, 14, I wasn't quite at, the right radio places. I only listened to WRKO, which was an AM station in Boston that didn't really play anything local. It played like,
Yeah, the top 40.
the top 40 stuff.
Yeah.
So when I met your dad, I guess, Vernon, you must have been about 18 or 19.
When I met you, I was maybe
You
18.
Bob.
18. Yeah, I was young. We were still
And
struggling a bit back then. Yep. But we would.
But
Yeah, but
you-
you were gone for a while at that point, I think. Like your
18.
band was, yeah,
was always,
you and
I was
Dana
always
were
playing
working.
everywhere. We were always driving
Yeah.
out to somewhere to play.
well, I'll tell you something. Dana and Vernon were both. Dana was super sweet to me. Vernon, I loved you, Vernon. I mean, Vernon, Vernon Senior.
preoccupied.
Vernon Senior was preoccupied, but I was in awe. I was like, oh my God, this guy's a famous bass player and he's awesome. And I like how he plays. I'm so lucky to know him. But at that time, you didn't really, I can understand when you're 18, you don't really care about the 13-year-old or the 14-year-old, or maybe you're 18 or 19. And I remembered that Dana acted a little differently. Like he acted like I was a brother in some ways. You acted like not anything negative or bad. I love you to death, right? I'm not trying to say anything bad.
Let him have it.
Hit me as hard as you want.
Let him have it.
No, I never. No, I was always. I was
No,
always.
I
in love,
probably
like,
deserve it.
like-
Well, the thing is, I was in those days, I was very preoccupied with trying to make a career out of music. And I didn't have the luxury of what my brother enjoyed coming along, because I did all that. I made sure we had gigs. I made sure whatever we did, I was doing it. This is probably a better topic for another time, but I do want to move on with your
I don't know what you do with this call. I just thought just the three of us.
I want to know when you got that diagnosis and you found out you had the operation. I want to know that's what I call the out of the blue event, the one that's changing.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a different story.
Everything fundamentally.
Yeah.
So would
Totally
you
different
say
story.
what changed did you start noticing more important things in your life, the people that really mattered more to you than did any kind of shift?
Yeah. There was a big shift.
Consciousness shift.
I know we're kind of jumping around from how we met and how long we've known and what's
But I think
happened
that's good.
in our
That's background to it all, to me.
Well, there's a lot more to the background, but at least I know it's not a lot of time to talk about the whole background. But
I feel like, Michael, may I interject? I feel like that background makes sense to me because it's like maybe I'm really honored that after this shift in your focus from life that took place from the out of the blue event of getting a tumor and all that I remained in there as somebody important to you. And that's an honor to me.
You've come back to me. Gosh, I mean, you've been back like my family for so many years, but it's even gotten deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Me meeting you around 13 and we're in different places, and how I looked up to you so much. And although you had all these tours, hey, another little side note, Vernon Jr., one of the first live shows I ever saw of an original band was SAS playing at, I'm trying to remember the name of that hotel. It was a gig with the Neighborhoods in the Atlantics.
Yeah, the
Marriott.
Come back to it.
No, it's
it was a
the
hotel
old
where
hotel in Boston. It's called the
and at that same hotel, like after they played, that stage also had Tina Turner and George Thorogood. It was a big. That was the first gig I ever really saw of a live original band.
Yeah, it was a good place to see it. But I recall it not being a great show for me because my arm was in a sling.
I remember that too. I remember that's another story. I remember what happened.
But but the thing is, when you at that point, I remember sort of feeling like you were like my little brother. I mean, that's when I thought of you as more my brother. Because then when we lost Paul, you were you became it. So you had that whole thing. Now I now considered you taking Paul's place and his emissary on the earth.
Oh,
'Cause I
and let
always
me add
felt
something. And
connected to you through
your
him.
mom acted more like my mom. Your mom always felt
And
like
my
my
mother
mom.
felt the same way about you. She did the
Yeah.
same thing, felt the same way.
Uh,
She was always
I just
asking
wanted
me
to,
when you were in California and I was doing the Dead Time stories with you. She was all over me saying, "How's Michael? Tell me about Michael." I was always telling her stories about going out there and visiting with you.
I remember the last time I saw your mom was when I came. I know you asked another question, but just to fill in a few more things. Um, I'm trying to make sure I'm not getting stuck here. Last time I saw your mom was when I came to see you um, when your medical thing started about 6 or 7 years ago, I think.
That's right.
I flew, and that was before my stuff started, and I saw your mom. So like yeah, I think maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember now.
It was when I did
But
it was at my fundraiser.
yes, yeah, yeah.
And
But
it's
aside from that, I was just going to say, wow, all of a sudden your mom's cooking just came into my head too.
yeah.
Oh, the great food she made. So, and the other thing, by the way, I know I told this to Vernon West. I'm so sorry. I keep going West Junior, Senior. I'll just say Junior, Senior. When I was talking to Junior the other day, I was telling him about how the band I had with Paul and Chris Highlander, we got to open for SAS several times.
Yep.
That
That
was
was
another
fun.
interest. That was just another wild thing. But again, jumping a little bit more ahead after what happened with Paul, when you came out to California to do a show at
Lingerie.
the Club Lingerie, yeah, and you came to my apartment in Toluca Lake. I had a little apartment there, and that's when we reconnected. That was around I don't know what year was that. Was that the nine? That was the 90s.
90s. That was around 96, maybe. Something like that.
Oh, I know. You asked me a question I can answer.
Yeah.
You asked me about something
How'd
I
your life
just
change after that?
Oh
Out
yeah.
of out of the blue event. This is the basic thing. So many things we're talking about here. How'd you see life after
that's
all
how my
that?
life changed.
You found your religion, you found God.
I mean, there were points in time where I don't know if you knew I had I forget what it was called. I got sick. I was in my early 20s. I was at Mass General and I almost died there and I made it through. I almost died a few times, but I never prayed. I never asked. I never thought. And there's one other thing before I go into this, I'm going to show you one other thing. And this is the day that this all changed. Here it is, almost there. Can you see that photo?
Yes.
Those are my chaplains from the Army, from the
Oh
National
yeah.
Guard. Chaplain Brenda Threat is her name. She's now a lieutenant colonel. And Chaplain Randy McConnell came into my room, introduced themselves to me, said that they were my chaplains. They were so sweet. We talked. They said, "Would you mind talking to us? Would you be happy? Is it okay?" I said, "Sure." And we wound up after we talked for like an hour. I got to calm down because every time I talk about this, I cry. They said, "Would you be okay if we prayed for you?" I've never had anything like that happen. Uh, we prayed. I started crying. I felt my body lifting up off the bed. I'm not kidding. Uh, back in Boston at Malden, when I went to Malden Catholic, if you ever had any questions about God or about Jesus, you get yelled at or you get sent to detention. It was really weird. I mean, they didn't really seem to care. They yell at you. When I moved to California, I met people that were going to different churches and with Christianity, and they were not some good people, not following. So I've always cared. I've always been interested in what does anybody have to say? What works for them? What do they believe in? And I found the things that have never worked for me. When they came and talked to me, um, my life it did really change.
So you found a
I'm trying
foundation.
not to. When I talk about the change, when I talk about God, when I talk about Jesus, I can often start crying, not because I'm sad, because it's worked. It's been very it's helped me. I'm very happy, and I believe.
Well, you're an
They,
example.
they,
Think about this to tell our listeners how you have got something they predicted would take you soon, and you've outlived their predictions by how much? Tell me about that.
every doctor I've seen at several different hospitals, and this particular cancer called glioblastoma. It's the same cancer that killed Neil Peart from Rush, the drummer. It's the same cancer that killed Ted Kennedy many years ago, and John McCain, and Joe Biden's youngest son. It's rare, 30,000 people out of 400 million a year. But I'm sorry, Vernon, ask me what you asked me again. I just
So
got.
the first prediction was if you're lucky if you get a year, right?
Yeah, they said one doctor at a different place said you got a year to live, and they wanted to put me on this trial that would have cost a lot of money, billing my insurance a lot of money, and billing me a lot of money, and I'd have to shave my head and wear these electrodes. And they said, that'll keep you awake, that'll keep you alive till you're at least 16 months. I said, well, if I'm going to stay alive for 16 months and be sick with side effects, I'd rather have no side effects and die at 12 months. And I never did that. And I'm now coming up on 41 months. I've had 3 brain surgeries. I got 2 tumors again right now. They're going to start doing radiation again. But people I'm seeing die. There's a Facebook page for this cancer. I'm seeing people die left and right. Some that have made it to 10 years and 14 years. Not a lot. It's kind of rare. Most people are dying in that 12 to 16 month range. And when this happens, they say 5% can make it to 3 years. So I'm in that 5% because now I'm at 3 years and 4 months. And now I'm in that percentage of, they say, well, from that, maybe 1 or 2% will make it to 5 years. So now I'm in the 90-something% chance of not making it, but we'll see. I'm not worried anymore. It's all changed because of my feelings for God, for the Lord. I don't even know where to start because I've had so many conversations with total strangers. And when I've met these total strangers, we've wound up believing the same thing about him. And then I've wound up meeting total strangers who've had family members who've died from this cancer. That's rare. That's
Wow.
super rare. Something had just happened. Something had just happened yesterday. We have this restaurant out here. We have this grocery store I was telling you about. I was asking you about the other day, and I can't remember if I mentioned it to you. The Amazon fresh grocery.
I know
We
what it
got
is.
one in the
Amazon
whole
Fresh.
area. Yeah, in I think LA County, there's only one. You can sit there and eat whatever you buy if you want to. I don't normally do it. I went at a certain time. I sit down, and when I sat down, the 3 people in front of me, they were all wearing crosses. And something I don't know if you ever see this or don't see this, Vernon Jr. I see a lot less people out here that wear a cross in general. And the moment I sat down, I often get a message. Not all the time, but sometimes I get messages from God that just hit me where it's not like a voice. It's just something coming to me saying, it's not him saying, Michael, sit there and go talk to him. It wasn't like that. The minute I saw their crosses, all of a sudden something said, you should talk to them. Well, I didn't talk to them right away. I got this like to-go thing of sushi, and they were eating some pizza. And there's a man facing me on that table, 2 women, his wife and her mother. So out of the blue, after like 5 minutes, the wife turns around and she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Is it just you sitting there?" I say, "Oh yeah." She goes, "Oh, okay, good. I'm so sorry. We took the extra chairs from that table." Okay, I continue to eat. not talking to them. Then I can see her husband looking and pointing at my food, but he's not talking to me. He's talking to them. Then he sees me looking back. He goes, "Oh, I'm just talking about the sushi." He goes, "I like the sushi, but I'm eating pizza today." I said, "Oh, I like their pizza." So we just have this little conversation, and then we start talking a little bit more. We're just having a general conversation about where they're from, where I'm from, and they asked me something, and something that's been happening lately because of my cancer treatment, my brain surgery, is my memory's all messed up. Like you're learning in this phone call, I can't believe I'm actually being able to stay clear right now. This has not been normal for me lately.
It's a new normal.
Yeah. In the beginning of our call, like in the first 15, 20 minutes, I was going left and right and up and down. We're talking about so many different things, and maybe I'm, again,
I just
talking
think
too much.
I just think we have so much to say. We don't, people, when we get together, I mean, we have a
Sure.
lot to say to each other, and it's
Understood.
not easy to focus down
Well,
on just one thing. So
understood. Well, let me
finish this though.
add to.
This one thing is very interesting you're on now.
Yeah,
I really
and
like
this happened, and this has happened a bit, but where I'm going with this is, so we're having a general conversation, and I get stuck, and I forgot what I'm trying to say, and I said, "Hey, I know you guys don't know me, but I'm not trying to get you to feel bad for me, but I have cancer in my brain, and it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you can see a lot of the stitches here." And so I showed them, and we start, and they said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I said, I'm just not trying to get you to feel bad for me, but it's why I'm having a problem with my memory. I'm getting stuck. And and we start talking, and I told them I have glioblastoma, and the mother, the older woman, you could see what happened. She had a son who had it too. It's rare. She had a son who had it. He only lived 3 months. We're chatting. I started crying. I'm trying to calm down right now. But then I started telling them how I believe and how I'm sure he's taking care of me because I'm at 40 months, how I accepted him, where I've gone with this, how I pray, what I believe in. And I said to them very specifically, I don't eat here often. And they said the same thing. This is their first time eating there. I could have sat at other tables. I was moved to sit there. I saw their crosses, and I was told something popped up in my head and said, talk to them. So that's what I said. And I always keep, this is always in my pocket. This came from a friend of mine, now a great friend, but somebody I had been working with. He's a vice president of UPS in charge of government and military. And because I had been working with him through the military, he didn't know my whole situation. When he found out, we were talking one day, and he found out in the middle of my conversation with him, and he pulled this out of his pocket, handed it to me. This is actually from Italy. He said, and I believe him, he said he got it from the Vatican, and it was blessed
by the Pope.
Yeah.
I got someone gave me something like that too.
And she even says it's made in Italy on it, but this has been in my pocket all the time. I have many people come to me from many backgrounds, and I just think of one thing. I don't make it a Catholic thing. I don't make it a Methodist thing or a Baptist thing or a whatever thing. I'm a Christian. I've never been baptized, but I have friends who are Catholic brothers who take good care of me, and I go see them, and they don't care if I'm not, they don't try to force me into anything. I got friends who are missionaries. I got this came to me from the Mormons. I got friends who are Mormon that I've seen in my town, and I talk to the Mormons, and I thank them for what they do, and I let them know why I'm grateful. I say I love the fact that you also believe in our Lord, in our God. I am not against you being a Mormon. It's not me having the time to do this or read or understand. I've got Mormons to believe I won't become a Mormon, and they're not trying to force it on me. They still call me. I get phone calls. I get messages. They're not saying, "Hey, did you read this, or did you get this, or do you want to come out?" They now talk to me just as another Christian. They don't talk to me as a Mormon, or they don't try to force anything. Somehow, regardless of if you're a Mormon, Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, whatever, we're all. It's not. There's been what I've done. Let me back up a step. Several years ago, so the chaplains in the military do not go with Catholicism, or they just
Right.
follow one thing, just
Right. It's like
God.
the chaplain at the hospital, the same way.
Exactly. Several years ago, 2 years ago, no, 3 years ago, I I was out doing an activity, being invited to a Navy ship. That's not a normal thing that anybody can go on. I was under orders to go do something, and I knew one of the admirals. He had one of the chaplains for the ship meet me. And when I found out, I called my Catholic priest friends, and I called I called a missionary friend, and I called my chaplain from the military, and I got them all to come with me. So we were all together for 3 or 4 hours, all of them talking, and that felt so good. And they still tell me how much they all love that. So, but that conversation I just told you about at Amazon, stuff like this has happened to me like 10 times in the past year, maybe
You,
maybe 15 times in the past 2 years, where I see total strangers, not even wearing a cross, just a total stranger walking. We're walking towards each other, and for some reason, these somebody says, "Hey, we just go hi, how are you?" and just keep walking in my town or in small towns, or somebody walking their dog, and their dog just starts wagging its tail. I say, "Oh, can I talk to your dog?" And we start chatting. Then we start talking a little more. Then I find out that they are also believers. I mean, listen, I don't. It doesn't bother me if somebody doesn't believe. I don't try to force anything on anybody. I like sharing, just to say how. It's not that I've not been a believer, but my whole life never really thought about it, wasn't against it, didn't pray. How it's changed my life now, how everything that's happening to me, I feel it has to be from him, because I'm still here, I'm still alive. I got a few more things to even higher than this, but I would always meet people. I'm talking to people. Turns out they've had a husband, a father, a son, a daughter who also had glioblastoma, who already died. So they believe in God. We meet each other accidentally. They have a family member with something so rare, that's helping me continue to fight and stay alive and feel like I'm growing and moving and growing and moving. How else? I cannot see how else it could be happening, because I don't know these people. And this keeps happening.
well, I think this is all a wonderful example of what I've seen with other guests that have had the out of the blue experience that changes their life, that makes them have a sort of a shift, a consciousness shift, alignment or something. And whether it's finding their way with spirit or Jesus or whatever your your particular unique discoveries have been. And I'm sure this is going to be inspiring to a lot of people who are on that same journey. But I'm going to say the most important thing that I think to discover, now we're talking about something that's above and beyond any particular religion. And this thing that you've discovered from out of the blue is something powerful enough that once you've connected with it and you've made the shift to not only learn from it and become maybe a better person, more spiritual, and learn to pray and all that, then not
Oh,
only that, but it opens up all this out of the blue stuff. And I found that to be the case with everybody. And anyone who's listening to this episode will know it's true, because everybody that we've had on has had this same type of thing to say, that they all of a sudden find connections with so many different people out of the blue. So
well,
something
I have
is
to,
happening with that.
I need to interrupt you. I have to tell you the most interesting thing that made all of this happen. I didn't get there.
Oh, go ahead.
Watch this. This is how I know and I believe, and I will not ever not believe. Approximately 11, 13 years ago, out of the blue, I get a message from somebody who finds me on LinkedIn. And we talk on the phone. This woman actually she actually spent time in Lynn for a long time, but this was out. She was living in Phoenix, working for this company that I wound up working with until this all happened, Worldwide Technology. And she's looking to hire for the company, and she finds me by doing this search on LinkedIn for my background, which is project management. We have a phone call. She's saying she'd like me to come in and apply. I have a great background. And I said to her, well, I don't know your company name. I've never heard of it. I only want to work for a Fortune 500 that I've ever known. Big companies that I have worked for in my career. And she goes, well, can we at least talk about it? Okay, sure. We talk. It sounded interesting. She goes, let's just talk to a few more people. Starting to sound interesting. It took them 2 months of going through interviews. And I just said, oh, wow, this sounds great. Okay, I'll take the job. So I don't have to go into a very long discussion about what happened next. But about a month later, as I've gone through my meetings with them in different states, going to the headquarters in St. Louis, and then coming into work with the utility company out here, which is the electric company, Edison. They put me into a role that they're running for Edison. The guy I'm working with, his name's not important, but the guy I'm working with, he's also, I didn't know that he was in the military currently, and he's a colonel, but we're in the same role. After about 2 weeks of getting to know him, I didn't rejoin the military yet, but after 2 weeks of getting to know him, he asks me if I'm a Christian. He's a Christian. He just asks me, "Hey, Mike, are you a believer? And because I got to tell you, he's a believer, and he was kind of like me in some ways. Except he was from New York. I found out he joined the Marines at 17 or 18. He'd been in for a long time. He's been deployed. He's all over the place. He's a hell of a guy. He's very, very serious Christian to this day. But I didn't join yet. I wasn't, or I shouldn't say I didn't join. I didn't revamp or believe again. But he starts talking to me, and whenever we go out to lunch, he'd do a little prayer before he ate, So this is still before the cancer. Something else that I had learned when I joined my company, Worldwide Technology. At the time, it was about 4,000, 3,000 employees. Now they're like 12 to 15,000. They make a lot of money, privately held. The owner of the company is a Christian, a real believer. Not that, I say a real believer because he's doing something every day.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
He's worth billions of dollars too, and he doesn't make it he helps people. He works on cancer, everything. How I knew this, when I went to a big activity when they hire you and they want you to come to St. Louis and they keep you there for a couple of days. He wasn't there to meet us, but I started walking through the hallway to find where the president and the CEO, all these people are, because that's just how I am. I go to his office and I see his secretary, and she goes, "Oh, hi, how can I help you?" I said, oh, I'm just trying to meet Mr. Stewart. It's Stewart with a D at the end. David, you should look him up. David Stewart, Steward, from St. Louis, Worldwide Technology. And she goes, oh, he's not here today, but he would love to meet you. He loves to meet everybody. Let me show you his office. As we walk in, go into his office, there's a Bible on his desk, a huge one, and he's going through it every day. I'm still not back with the Lord yet. This was 11 or 12 years ago. So I learned who he is. I did such a great job with that company, and they were always wonderful, and I always got my job done. I had great people I worked for. I told you the gentleman who was doing the same job with me was a Christian and a colonel in the National Guard.
It all came together, really.
Yeah, so I'm showing you how this happened. Before the cancer hit me, he convinces me to come back and join the military again, join the National Guard. And that was 5, 6 years ago, because he could use my help there, wants me to be with him, working for him in the National Guard. Well, still moving on from there, again, before the cancer hit me, before I met my chaplains, COVID comes along. And our company, owned by Mr. David Stewart, the president, the private owner, he sets up a bi-weekly Zoom call to have a prayer call every other Wednesday at 10 o'clock Pacific, a Zoom call. And the people that are on that call, I started going and oh my gosh, governors. This guy's so big, he's connected so many. Governors are joining the call. Congressmen are joining the call. The Winans, BBC, all the Winans were on that call and performing. David Sanborn, he passed away, but you know who he was, right? David Sanborn, the sax player, was a Christian. He used to be the main sax player on the David Letterman show.
Yep,
he's
yep.
Grammy Awards, all kinds of stuff. He's on that call. And this call was beautiful. It was just like an hour every other week. And he wasn't forcing anybody to join. The owner of the company, Mr. Stewart, was there. So I'm starting to believe even more. Now I'm in the military. Now I get my cancer. Now the military sends the chaplains. Now they're there to help me. I had to be severanced from my job because you lose the clearance, you lose the background when you can't do your job because you've had so many brain surgeries. You can't run the projects and run the programs. I'm on this cancer is it's terminal, and Social Security has it not just terminal but permanent disability. Sometimes I can't drive, sometimes I can't walk, sometimes I'm fine. So this company brings me in. They find me online. I wasn't looking. I accepted. This brought me back into the military, which also brought me back to God through the company I'm working for and through the military. And then, like I said, when I got my cancer, the chaplains come in, they talk to me. We held hands and I reaccepted immediately.
All of that you just mentioned, and that was a good narrative. You got a lot of points there, and there is
it really changed my life. I have been praying so much. I believe so much. I'm not trying to force myself on anybody, and
it just happened.
I made it to 40, and I made it so long. How could I make it to? How could I get this far? I get to every time I get tumors, they're getting fought, they're getting battled. And the last thing I want to add that makes this even more amazing, I'm in the middle of, because I came back into the military as enlisted, and I went to officer candidate school when I had a long break after the last surgery. It got me 14 months before surgery again this past February. But in that officer candidate school up in Northern California, some of the training, one of the training officers pulls me aside and says, "How's everything going with your cancer? I hope you're doing well." Somebody I don't ever see that often. He says to me, "Listen, do you have a good doctor?" "Yeah, I got a great doctor." "Well, listen, I got a great doctor as well to turn you on to. Would you mind taking his phone number?" I don't mind. But he pulls out his own business card. That officer pulled out his own business card. He writes a name on it, hands it to me. Dr. Timothy Clousey. I'm like, "That's my doctor." He goes, "That's my brother-in-law."
Wow. Well, that
And
that's all from
they are both Christian too.
yeah.
And Dr. Clousey, I guess legally, doctors aren't allowed to talk about religion. And
No, they're not, right?
and Dr. Clousey was able. Now I'm talking to him. Now he doesn't. They'll pray with me.
I just want to say one
And
thing before we sign off. That while you're doing all that stuff, and you had spent some time in St. Louis, did you not? So
yes,
did Vernon. Did you spend some time in St. Louis? I'm pretty sure.
Close. I was in school in Southern Illinois.
We would see St. Louis near you, yeah. So you probably were in the same vicinity more often than you even know. And Jackie was there too, and Samantha was out there in that area
no.
of Missouri. During
Oh,
this.
and when I joined the military, my basic training was in Missouri at Fort Leonard Wood.
See, that's intense, right? A lot of Missouri in our
I don't know if
life.
that has anything to do with anything, but yeah, that happened too.
Well, I'm going to say on behalf of welcome, first of all, Michael, welcome to our Out of the Blue family. This is a family, and you are definitely going to be sitting at the head of the table. You have one of the most powerful Out of the Blue story, narrative. Everything about it is like textbook Out of the Blue. And what does that mean? Somewhere out there, whether it's call it God, call it Jesus, call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter what you call it. I don't think it cares what you call it, as long as you call it. You call it and listen to it and follow some of the advice it gives you. You can't miss, and you're going to
All
keep
the
going.
advice that's been, all that advice that it's been given me, if I may add, is keeping me here. And
Yeah, that's what I was about
that's
to
all
say.
I can say.
And I can't wait. I just know that I'm praying for everybody. I'm saying for my family and myself, my Out of the Blue family, and my real family, that we only want more and more of Michael, more and more of
Yeah.
Michael. And
I
thank
want
you.
more and more of all of you as well.
Well, the feeling's mutual. So
When I pray every day in my prayer, part of my prayer is I'm talking about, my girlfriend has cancer and she's beating it. And she's going, when we met, she said they told her she only had like 5 or 6 months to live. Now we've been together for like 12, 13 years and she's kind of beat it. She's got some other things, and she still has other things to deal with. That's not what we're here to talk about. But I pray for her and I pray for me. But when I start that prayer, when I go through everything that I ask him for, I always say, Father, I'm not just saying this prayer for us. I'm saying this prayer for my family and my friends, acquaintances, and total strangers who I don't even know. I'm praying for people that need this help, Father. I add that, I say that. I meet people on Facebook. I meet people on the street. As I learn about them, if somebody says that they're having some issue, I tell them I'll pray for them. And even if I don't know them, I really, really, really pray. And when I pray, I really believe in what I'm saying. It's I don't ask for money. I don't ask for this. I just thank him. In my prayers, I've heard of people where they say, "Oh, I wish God would give me more money and a better job." No, it's not. I mean, maybe that's okay. I don't know. That's not what I do. But when I pray, I pray and thank him for getting to be here every single day, thanking him for another day, every day, thanking him for another day, thanking him for still getting us through this, getting us through these problems with our health. And all I ask him is to please continue uh, taking care of us like this so we can continue being here on his beautiful earth.
Yep.
That's all I ask for.
And that's a perfect place to end it. And you've been a wonderful guest and a powerful example for a lot of us, Michael. I mean, I know that you inspire me, and and I'm not grateful enough for having you in my life. I'm very grateful, very grateful.
You've been a wonderful brother. I got a lot of my life from you too. So and I'm loving to get and I love you too, Vernon Jr. As we hadn't known each other as you being a little kid because of us living at different places, but the time we spent together, you've been so awesome, and on the calls we've had and being in person. So I'm super grateful to know you. As I told your dad, whatever I could do here, I would be happy to help you with, and you're doing such great things. But you're both important people to me as well, so much.
Well,
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for being around. It's nice that you're here and while I get to live here. It's cool.
Thank you.
It is
really-
like I told you this, you're like uncle now. Like you're my family out in this coast, which is nice. So yeah. And
thank you.
also, yeah, it's pleasure talking to you. You're still sharp. Uncle Mike still got it.
Well, Michael,
That's very kind of you.
You really do. You really do. I mean, I
Yeah,
was
man.
very grateful to hear everything you had to say. I learned more. I know a lot about you. I do, but I learned more. And it's what I really learned about mostly was that inner life. That's the thing that's most impressive and how
And you're a big part of this. Helped me too, because I've seen what's happened to you, and this is before I was a believer, and I was worried, and I was just worried, and oh my gosh, your recovery, how you've changed, how you're here. Wow, that
Well, I appreciate that.
unbelievable.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
yeah, you both. That's how I look at both of you. I mean, the fact that you guys are so resilient and you're not only recovering, but you like have a healthier mindset from all of this. I mean, I know that's the point of this podcast, but I mean, I look up to that like crazy. You guys are both very like mentally strong people, and it's also a testament to how you can. I mean, obviously, it's a privilege to be able to get through these things and survive things with certain resources and stuff. But I mean, it's pretty clear mindset goes a long way with both of you. And how you embrace the changes, I feel like gives you a new life. So, yeah, I look up to that. I mean, you both are perfect examples. And knowing that you two had each other through this probably helped in a profound way.
Oh yeah, I don't think I could have done it. I definitely had Michael. Matter of fact,
Oh,
Michael, you were
vice
the first.
versa. Same thing.
Michael, I was just leaving this one silly note that when I was kind of bananas in the hospital, you were the first person I called to come get me.
Okay. I just gotta. Can we talk about this real quick?
Go ahead.
Because I know because I didn't go through the same thing. I went sort of through this, and you explained this. The short, less than 2 minutes, Junior. And so I got a phone call after I think it was a brain surgery,
Yeah.
and I was with John Salviti,
Yep.
and oh no, you called me, and then I think I called you back. You called me, and it was like I can't remember my time zone, but you called me and asked me. I'm not going to go into the exact bit, right? But you called me and asked me, "Can you come out and get me? Come out and get me. I need some help. Come out and get me, or come and get me." You didn't say come out, just come and get me. And I said, "What's going on?" You said, "Can you come out?" You just kept saying, "Come out and get me." And I said, "Well, I can't get back here for a few days. I'd come back, sure." And you said, "You got to be here in a few hours." And I think I said, "Vernon, I can't get there in a few hours because I need to get a flight. I need to get on a plane." And I think
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what happened, all the words, but you were at that point of maybe not understanding or not believing. And then I had an activity with John Salviti the next day, and I think you called him too. I think I can't remember.
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, we
You were
started
the
talking about this.
you were the first person I called. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Michael, come
And
get me. They're keeping me, they're keeping me prisoner. I
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah. So it
sure of
turned
it.
out to be and he and Vernon Senior got it several weeks later. He knew that it was just something that was happening to his, I think, his brain because of the surgery. Now, what happened with me? I had a similar funny thing. Not quite like that, but after my brain surgery uh, in May, I sent them. I was supposed to be out with the military, and they didn't know that I had to have the surgery. And I no, sorry, there were two things. Before I had the surgery, I didn't know what to say, and I sent an email to the military saying I can't be there this weekend. Help! I've been kidnapped. They're going to cut off my head and take out my information box. That was while I had the tumor, and you know what happened? The military showed up like right after the surgery. The military showed up in uniform, and they were told they couldn't come in because it was too early. And they said, tough luck. He's with us. We're going to call the police if you don't like it. And they came in, and but right before they did that, as soon as I came out of my surgery, this is what it was. As soon as I came out of my surgery, I didn't know where I was. After the surgery was like a 10-hour surgery, and I woke up in some room, and I just started yelling, "Help! Help! Where am I? What am I doing in?" I said, "What am I doing in China? Why am I in China? Why am I in China?" I kept screaming, "Why am I in China? Why am I in China?" And the nurses came running in. "You're not in China. You're not in China." I kept saying, "Where's my phone? How come I'm in China? Why am I?" I was screaming, yelling, "Why am I in China? Get me out of here! Get me out of here!" And they gave me something. They knocked me out. I woke up 2 days later in another room. And it's like, I know we talked about that, and you told me that's kind of how something could happen, and how that when you called me, I think that's what I didn't mean to go again back to another process.
I guess at the end of the day, we've both come a long way from that. And it was definitely a little humorous, but actually a little frightening when it happened. But at the same time, at the end of the day, we can laugh about it because we're protected by something bigger than us that's really watching over it, and whoever we choose to call that, whatever your chosen religion is, I hope you find it, who is ever out there listening. And your out of the blue will show you the way. Whatever happens from out of the blue will eventually help guide you there. I think that's the ultimate takeaway from all this. And I want to say on behalf of Michael Scott and our honored guest today, and my co-host Vernon III, and I'm the junior. But I want to say thank you for joining us on Out of the Blue, and tune in next week for the next episode. And but definitely look at all the things that are going to come up at the end of the episode. Michael's email address, and you can also DM the podcast. And if you or anybody has had an Out of the Blue event you want to share with us, we're also very interested. And thank you very much for joining us. This is Vernon West with Vernon West and Michael Scott. Have a great day. Out of the Blue. Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Vernon West III, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.